Howdy-ho, everyone. Welcome to the Paranormal Pride. I'm your host, Denise Pridemore, and that behind me is my husband, who's putting on an air cleaner for us because there's a little smell in the house. Cooking smells. So if you can't hear me, say something.
Onions.
So my guest, Jessica Potter, was supposed to be on tonight, and she couldn't be on. She's not feeling well. So I told her not to worry about it. I understand. And I'm going to reschedule her for another day. So please make sure you look for that if that's who you're looking for. But my dear friend, Frank Bennett, is going to be on here with us here in a minute. And I can always count on him to cover my ass. So welcome, Frank J. Bennett.
Yeah, whenever anything's smelling in my house, folks just usually ask me to go outside.
Well, my kids like to cook onions.
Awesome.
With what?
Yeah. It kind of smells like White Castle in here.
Oh, yeah, I got cats. Yeah, I dig you.
Yeah, so I don't know if Crystal smells like that. I haven't been there.
Hey, I don't know if I'm supposed to be covering your ass. That sounds like something can get me shot by my wife.
Well,
now, to be fair, she's not a good shot. But I do labor under the belief that she can nail me with a ricochet.
Well, but she also knows that I have no designs on you anyway. We're just friends, and she knows it, so she don't care.
She is down in West, oh my God, Virginia, with her daughter, who is having a medical procedure. So she will not be here tonight. But she sends her love.
Well, when you see her or talk to her again, tell her I send my love and for her to take it easy coming home. Or did you take her up there and bringing her back?
No, she drove herself, which is that was a task and a half because as you get older, that trip don't get easier.
And I do it during the day. And West Virginia roads are you're either kissing your own ass or you're kissing somebody else's on those roads.
She called me hours ago. A trucker ran her off the road on I-70 going through Maryland. And
I-70 sucks.
It's nasty out there.
I tell you, I've been all over I-70 and I mean from the beginning point to the end point. Luckily not in all one trip, but I have been on all of it. And I don't think any of it's good.
Well, when no trucks on it, yeah.
Well, my mom, she got hit on 81 in Blacksburg, Virginia, head on by an 18-wheeler that crossed the highway. Don't know how she did this. Maybe this is one for Bible teacher to take over with. But she said that she felt like she was taken out of the car during all this and put back in there. She had not a scratch on her. The car was completely totaled. And she didn't have a scratch on her.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I believe that all up and down. Because you all remember the TV show Happy Days.
Mm-hmm.
The man who played Potsy, Anson Williams, I met him a few times. He tells this story. It's fascinating. People don't know anything about you. And when you tell them that, your expertise is the paranormal, they kind of very cautiously open up about you with stories and stuff. They wouldn't tell anybody else. And he appeared on one program and told a story about how in his early days in Hollywood, he and his dog were traveling through, I forgot what part of LA it was, but they were struck kind of from a corner front, and the absolute front of the car was completely smashed in. And he was heading for the steering wheel, but he said it felt like a couple of hands were put on his chest and kind of pushed him back some. And the car was completely mangled and totaled, but he came out without a scratch. And the dog that was laying on the floor, the passenger side up front, not a scratch.
Probably ended up somewhere in the back seat.
No. And it
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And that was probably a 60s vintage VW, built tough, but not that tough.
No. I've heard a lot of stories like this. My mom said she actually felt like somebody took her out of the car. She goes, I don't know if it was her husband Ansel, who had died not long before then, my dad, or her mother.
Mm-hmm.
I said, don't know. I said, I wasn't there. I said, but it could have also been combined efforts of the people who loved you. Or you just weren't done with what you needed to do and God put you back in the car. But yeah, not a scratch on her. I never understood how, like, drunk drivers. In Maryland, back on Back River Neck Road, this guy my mom was dating had been drinking and driving and got into a car accident, hit a telephone pole in an old Mercury. Of course, car was metal. He wasn't. He walked away. No, not a scratch on him. But thank God he didn't hit someone else. How come, that kind of stuff happens? And 9 times out of 10, the drunk driver hits somebody, they walk away, but somebody they hit may not.
It's one of the greatest mysteries of life. Why not? Why does the Lord seem to protect some and let others go to waste? It's why or why not. But these are all the questions I wrestled with when I was young, before I got saved. After I got saved, it took a little bit of maturity, but it finally made sense to me why and why not. And the Lord has his reasons. And the worst thing you can do is tie yourself up in knots trying to figure it out. Because it's kind of like when it rains on everybody, regardless of who and what you are. We all live in a gigantic rainstorm. We got umbrellas and we got ways of sheltering from the rain, but eventually you're going to get wet, no matter who you are. Some people take it better than others, but fretting about it and obsessing about it is really detrimental to your very spirit.
Yeah. Well, even with an umbrella, you're getting wet. May not be getting wet on your head, but you're getting wet somewhere.
That's right. Yeah.
So
and I, like y'all, I've got an inquisitive mind that just does not stop asking questions until I get what I want. Yes, I am annoying, but this is what being saved got me. It gave me an understanding I would never have had otherwise. It's the Lord has his reasons, and his reasons may not seem right to you and me, but he has his reasons and they work.
Why did you go about getting saved? I mean, why did you do that? What was the catalyst that made you go, I got to do this? And
that's actually in the book, in my first book, Encounter with the Aberdeen Wild Man, A True Story, cheap plug. And I was going to say before that, by the way, that in relation to these episodes where bizarre events seem to, swoop you from the jaws of utter destruction at the last moment, or preserve you through something that should have killed you. I had a lot of episodes like that, and I had a lot of bizarre people come in and out of my life. They just simply didn't make sense. How they could have been there, and where did they go, and why could I never find them afterwards? All that kind of stuff. When you write, you've got a billion stories to tell, but for the reader, they don't want to read a billion stories. So there's a lot you got to leave out. And a culmination of all of these experiences, and just simply, life will grind you to a pulp if you let it. But, the whole time you're paying attention to your body and making yourself strong and the best you can be. And the whole time you're cramming your mind chock full of information and knowledge, trying to make yourself better than you are, or prepared to go on jeopardy. The very thing that you're neglecting most is the most important thing about you, and that's your spirit. It's fascinating, but your human spirit is everything about you. Any experience, memory, desire, aspiration is in your spirit, and it's the only thing you're taking with you when you pass away. If anybody's at home following, just reference the book of Luke, chapter 16. And an example of that is found there. But my spirit one day, in spite of all I was able to do with myself physically and mentally, and I impressed many people, my spirit one day just simply took over the entirety of me and forced me to beg to be saved. It was not something I would have done on my own.
Well, I figure there's a catalyst for, I mean, almost everything we do in life, there's a catalyst that makes us do it.
Yeah.
Or makes us think about it.
Everybody is pushed to what you would call a brink or a crossroads, if you will. And some events are more subtle than others, like your paranormal experiences. They're designed to be subtle for a reason. Because it has to, in the paranormal, they have to trick your rational mind. You'll quickly figure out what you saw was not logical. So it has to be subtle. But your spirit is a different story, and being, wanting to decide to follow a religion or being saved or anything, everybody is pushed to that point for different reasons. Okay. I just got through watching the news and Joel Osteen's church down in Texas, the mega church. Just had that horrible shooting. Nothing like that has really ever happened in recent years. And yeah, I get it. He wants to use it as an opportunity to kind of package things in a way he normally explains these things. But in the end, that person was brought there with her son to that church for their own reasons, and they did a horrific thing, and they paid for it. That person paid for it. And the people in the church all had an experience. Whether that would drive them to change the way they do things or to seek something else, that's entirely up to them. But the Lord has to allow these things to happen because, you're not playing by his rules. You're playing by Satan's.
So this is your chance to make your choice. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
You think the worst thing that can happen in your life is being mundane. Stuck and locked and spinning your wheels. I had a friend in Maryland I hung out with all the time. He'd write me all the time and say, I'm just spinning my wheels, not doing anything, not going anywhere. And quite honestly, over time, he just dropped away and I never knew what happened to him. There's a lot of other folks. Honestly, I had spent the better part of 4.5, almost 5 decades having one person after another, people I've never seen before in my life, come up to me and tell me about their horrific experiences, not just the paranormal, but what's going on in their lives. And I never understood why they were telling me this, because I was just a dumb kid. I didn't know much about anything. And, they still do it. And that's why I go to the live events. The Hollywood show is coming up again, that I try to do it whenever I can, not just to see many of my friends who are in film and television, but also it is an opportunity for people out in that area to come see me and tell me their stories. And they usually end up doing so because they're not just looking for somebody who won't laugh at them, but maybe somebody who may understand, maybe give them a little bit of an insight or a little bit of light on the situation.
Do you think that the popularity of the paranormal has made it easier for them to come out and say stuff now?
Absolutely. And Teresa, my wife and I would watch all the paranormal shows, and we would, it's embarrassing because, people get influenced by what they see on TV and stuff, and they learn the terminology of the ghost hunters and paranormal investigators, which, by the way, are not the same thing. And they're trying to rationalize everything according to what they see on TV. That's a big, big, big mistake. Big mistake. When they meet somebody like me, to this day, as far as I know, I am the only one who is doing this the way I do it.
Well, somebody's got to do it the way you're doing it because that's your thing, to be you.
Playing.
Oh yeah. So I want to say hi to Tom and Cassie and Karen out there.
Well, it was Tom.
I did see all of you. Yep, that Tom McNicholas. He said he needs to see you the next time he's in Ohio.
I live in Ohio, Tom.
Yep. He's got. Yep. In May, they have the thing at Mansfield.
I can't go.
So
that is the promotion, and if they're listening, fine, sue me. I don't give a crap. What is? But they're the people who cheated, who kind of they're very sneaky, and they didn't want me at the setup at the show, so they essentially told me they didn't have tables for me. And another friend of mine messaged them the same day because something smelled wrong to me, and they told that person, "Oh yeah, we got tables." So yeah, I don't see a reason to do that show.
Yeah, I
honestly
think it's the first Saturday in May anyway. So
Yeah.
we won't be able to go because that's Kentucky Derby weekend.
No. Now the reformatory itself is a must see for everybody. Shawshank Redemption was filmed there for that reason alone. Go see it. The ghost tours and everything. I've been all over that facility, and I did not see, hear, or feel a blessed thing in the whole place, but others do,
Mhm.
which is the whole point to this paranormal thing. What everybody's experience is going to be different because spiritually
absolutely.
everybody is different.
It's now this year. It's the last week in May. So
I hope everybody has a great time. Quite
I hope
honestly,
they have
I
good
don't.
weather.
Even if I was invited, I really don't see a reason to go. It just there wasn't a lot of people there. At least not when I was there. Maybe it'll do
And then-
better.
I don't know. I know that some friends of ours have, well, friends such as Tom and Nick did go most every year. I know Dara and Caitlin, you met them at Ron's surprise party. That was totally surprised. Surprise. And they loved it out there. And I mean, you see the Missouri State Pen, then you see that place, and they're just both amazing to look at.
Mm-hmm.
The architecture is beautiful.
Well, yeah,
so,
and that's another thing to this. You're not just investigating the paranormal, you're walking through history. And if you had ever had the occasion to spy a spirit and it's dressed in period garb, you're looking back in time. You're looking, it's like a little peephole into a little point in history that won't come again. And in my book, I've got a whole chapter devoted to why you see spirits and the what fors of that. But, pay attention to what you see because it's a representation of what was. You may actually be seeing a representation of somebody who lived 150 years ago. That's worth something because I love history. And if you go to Mansfield at all, go for the history.
That's why we want to go to Brushy Mountain. That one looks like it, Brushy Mountain. It just looks like, first of all, a great place to go, especially as a follow-up after the Missouri State Pen, because some of the people that were incarcerated at the Missouri State Pen ended up being incarcerated there. Plus, they've got a distillery in there. So I'd like to go, but I can't go. You want to know why?
Yeah, I got an idea.
Well, the why is because you cannot use your own equipment in there, and anything that
I didn't know that.
Any evidence you get is theirs.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yep, I'm not paying that kind of money.
That ain't cool.
No. So, hey there, Susan. So yeah, I'm not into that. If I'm going, I'm doing what I want to do. And I'm 99% of the time, I'm not even sharing any of the stuff that we do there, in any place, mostly because all paranormal experiences are not objective.
Well, I speak to a lot of audiences throughout the year. Almost every live event I do, I get to speak to audiences. One of my most favorite parts of the whole event is when I get to ask anybody in the audience who here has seen a full-bodied apparition. And a few hands would go up, usually in the back, because in the back rows are the people who were probably ghost hunters going, don't know what he's talking about. What an idiot. And so it was just like when I used to work the pro wrestling circuit as security. The dudes would always sit in the audience with their arms folded going, shit's fake. The people who ghost hunt and come to any event I speak at act the same way, But I asked them, how could you be absolutely sure about that? Because As I write in the book, the full-bodied apparitions I encountered came to me as people I knew, people who were still alive. My wife had an encounter with a full-bodied apparition at a very popular scenic tourist attraction in upstate New York. And it appeared to her as anybody who would have walked through that door.
Mm-hmm.
So given that, I mean, you could smell them, you can smell the breath, you can actually kind of feel them. Given that, how many people out there right now may have already encountered or even had a conversation with a full-bodied apparition and don't even realize it? The majority of all hauntings take place far away from the popular haunted attractions.
I tell people all the time, when I see a spirit, they look just like you and me.
Just
you really can't tell much difference.
Yeah. In the book, at the time, it was a news story. But when I was writing my first book, there was a news story up in Maine, where I was living at the time. On the highway, the highway was jammed northbound for many, many miles because there was this car crash. And there was a person inside who was stuck or trapped in the car or something like that. And this goes to the point about angels. There was a man who came up from the other traffic that was stuck along the way. He was dressed as a reverend or a preacher. He came up and he comforted the man that was behind the wheel and walked away. Funny thing, nobody there remembers seeing him except the man who was driving the car. He reported it and nobody saw him. And then there was all of this stuff going around the media about this is proof of angels. Angels exist. Nobody saw him, but he was there. The man in the car saw him. He was there. Problem is that a couple weeks later on Fox News, this preacher showed up on TV. And exactly right, he did go up to the scene of the accident. There's EMS all over the place, all over the car. He gave the man comfort and just simply looked around and returned to his vehicle. He was alive. He was real. But nobody out of that whole group there surrounding that car remembers seeing him.
Yeah.
And in our society, there are people who you see every day but go unnoticed.
Yeah, there are. There is a lot of them. And we have a story in our family of Ron's family.
Ron's family? Oh, those hillbillies?
No, well, it was down here in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And he felt like there was somebody there with him, and nobody knows who the guy was that was with him. Mm-hmm. And then didn't he say he felt his father in the helicopter?
Yeah.
He felt talked to his father in the helicopter, and his father had been dead for years.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy at the scene,
he was yelling at the pilots to go faster.
Yeah, he was yelling at the pilots to go faster because his dad used to be a pilot. But the guy that was on the scene, they have not been able to find him.
Right. Now, this is where the gray area comes in. And this is what malevolent entities and the paranormal do, is that they try to deceive you. They want to make their apparitions look as real as you and I, if they can. If they cannot, they would like to put on the appearance of somebody you know, but not come near you so that you can identify them or touch them, you see. Mm-hmm. Their third trick, which is equally devastating, is they like to put on the appearance of a loved one that had passed away and you believe had gone to heaven. But by simply appearing at the end of the bed and, or maybe around the home or something, provides people with a sense of comfort. So if they have comfort with it, they won't question it. They'll accept it, they'll feel good about it, and they'll welcome its company, not realizing they have probably welcomed a malevolent spirit into their home who will hold the door open for, at a later date, other spirits and other entities to come in.
They related to the Capitol Police?
Yeah, well.
Sorry.
I don't know.
I guess I'm really not supposed to go there. But
The guy that showed up, he put the tourniquet on. He had jumped over a wall.
here he's coming closer.
Came over and put the tourniquet on. They said he was a nurse. I don't know if somebody at the scene asked, but he didn't even stick around. He put the tourniquet on and basically took off. About the time the ambulance showed up. But what he said was where the accident happened and where this guy stopped a car. I think he drove a car and stopped his car and then like jumped over this wall. But he said there was no way this guy could have seen what was going from where he was at. He just showed up.
Could be a matter of perspective also. Again, like the minister that came up to the guy in the car. Could have been a matter of perspective.
Right.
Yeah, everything else is so horrible all around that this one thing is not even noticed by anybody. Or because everybody's doing their own thing, they don't see this.
Yeah, I remember reading some stories about 9/11 when the towers were just about to fall, watching a firefighter run into the building right before it came down, and they thought he was lost, and he turns up later down the road or something like that, having helped some people. I mean, the perspective matters. And the entities in the paranormal know this. They play on your matter of perspective. When you're in bed at night and you're trying to get to sleep and you see an apparition at the end of the bed, that's a matter of perspective haunting. From another angle, you may not see that entity. Like you told me the one time about the entity you saw in the crowded room, and you were the only one who could see it. And I told you that apparition was for you.
Yep. That's what I tell people all the time. Sometimes I see stuff that nobody else is going to see, even a medium who is supposed, they're supposed to be able to see everything that's dead. No, that's not true. If it's meant for them to see it, they'll see it. I don't think that a lot of people put a lot of stock into that theory of seeing spirits.
We see spirits every day and may not realize it.
Yeah, I mean, you could have 5 mediums in one room and they all get something different. If they're all sitting there going, yeah, that's what I'm seeing, then who's telling the truth and who's lying?
Since I began doing this, it's going to be almost 10 years coming up here shortly. But since I've been doing this, I've accumulated a lot of friends who are psychics and mediums. I love all of them and we're all good friends. But I've seen them fooled and I've seen them go way off the rails. And I'm not going to name names, but some folks I knew for a fact were going way off the rails, and they were not talking to a spirit, or at least not the ones they think they were talking to.
I've seen that firsthand, and not once or twice, but enough to where I'm not real big on mediumship readings.
And of course, there's a lot of people who have a mediumship ability and are somewhat clairvoyant and don't realize it, and they're confused by everything they're getting. And whenever at a live event, somebody like that comes to my table and starts talking to me about their experiences, I try to find a very experienced psychic medium to refer them to for guidance, because I'm not equipped to answer all those questions. I'm not clairvoyant.
Right.
I could barely see my way through my own house now. But I do know when to defer to a professional in their field.
So do I. I know when to tell somebody, I can't help you. You need to go here. Or here.
Yeah. And I told you all the story about the little girl I met at the Steel City Con in Pittsburgh that one time, and she was only 14, and coming at me up the aisleway towards my table, she looked like any other little 14-year-old girl having the time of her life. And she stopped in front of my table and just kind of fixed in on it. I can't read what Tom is writing.
He wrote Denise saw a spirit following me around that he didn't see.
Yeah. I'll get to that in a minute. But this whole thing, to this day, when I think about it, my heart breaks because she was just so young and so cute and so innocent. And she stopped in front of my table and just looked at my books, asked me a couple questions about everything. And I swear to you, within 60 seconds of meeting her, I found myself in front of my table holding this 14-year-old girl, and she's endlessly sobbing because she was extremely clairvoyant, extremely. And she was being tortured day and night. Her mom showed up a little bit later and sat at our table with my wife and told her the whole story. But day and night, since they can remember, she is tortured by these spirits. They will not leave her alone. And she can't live like a normal kid. But dear God, when I saw her coming to my table, she looked like she was trying to. So I referred her to a professional psychic medium to kind of talk her around.
Well, that's the other thing. You remember that show, Psychic Kids?
Oh, I hated that.
With Chip Coffey?
Oh, dear God, I hated that.
So did I, because I felt like some of those children were being manipulated.
It was bordering on child abuse. It really
there
was.
Were some of those parents in there that really wanted their kids to be psychic, and they had no more psychic ability in there than I have in my pinky.
And that's the other real bad thing about this whole thing about the paranormal and people looking at what they see on TV and being influenced is that, just because you saw it on TV doesn't mean it's true. And just because they said something on a paranormal show that sounds like something that relates to you doesn't mean it really does relate to you. I mean, you may not have psychic ability. Sometimes a feeling is just a feeling. It's not psychic at all. And to actually, the time to drag your kids into stuff like this is when they're adults. They turn 18, let them go. But up till that time, you're also responsible for the spiritual welfare of your child. And you can really mess up a kid spiritually. When I was, my first paranormal experience that I remember is when I was around about 13. And of course, being young and dumb and, the closest thing we had to the paranormal on TV in the 70s was In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. Mm-hmm. Never covered stuff like this. And when you're a kid, you don't know what's happening to you. You don't understand your spirit any more than you understand the man in the moon. But these kids are being horribly corrupted and twisted and injured by this practice. And listen, they didn't even get a full season out of it. So it sank like a rock pretty quick.
Yeah.
And it's very irresponsible parents to do that.
I have an opinion, and it's not popular, so I'm not going to share it right now.
This show is about popularity. I'm shocked.
No, it's not about popularity. I just don't need I have a glass house. I'm not going to throw rocks.
A parent is responsible for every aspect of their child's well-being right up until the day they kick them out the front door. Every aspect of it. And as I found out when I became saved, I had no idea how much of me was my spirit until it took over my whole being. Something I never paid attention to. One day just took over everything. And made me go down on my knees and beg to be forgiven. Like I said, it was not a conscious thing. It just erupted in me and made me do that. Yeah. So people don't have a clue how powerful your spirit is.
I do agree that if your child is not mature enough to handle the paranormal, that you need to step in and keep them away from it. I do agree there. Mm-hmm. I also agree. The bad part is that some of these kids actually live in haunted houses, and you can't always protect them because the parent may not see it. They may not know that they're in a haunted house.
Yeah, and how many paranormal TV shows have we seen where the answer was to call in a ghost hunting team who walks around with their devices and might pick up a couple EVPs, make a bunch of wild assumptions based on a tiny amount of evidence, whip out some sage and think that they've solved your problems, not knowing that they just went and made it all worse.
And I agree. They do that. I don't understand why, for some people, that their first thought is, no, I do understand why their first thought is a paranormal team, because they've already gone the route of the priest or the minister, Well,
now, the only church really known for having a program that deals with house cleansing is its Catholic Church. Other denominations in Christendom have this, but it's very small. Good luck trying to find it. And in order for you to get in the church, it's called an exorcism. There's no such thing as a cleansing in the Catholic Church.
No.
If they show up, they want to scrub the whole thing and do a full-blown exorcism. And that has to be approved by the archdiocese. That's like trying to call the White House and asking the president to deliver a pizza to your house.
He wouldn't be able to find it.
He wouldn't be able to find it.
That's a whole different
his
problem.
way back to the White House, for that matter.
So yeah, but see, I understand that. I have friends that work for the archdiocese in Springfield, Missouri. So I know that part of it. I do know that some ministers will come in and do a house blessing. Is there a difference between a house blessing and a house clearing?
No, they're
in
more
your
or less
mind.
the same category, but when we're talking about an exorcism,
That's
is
completely
nuclear.
different.
Yeah, that's the nuclear option, because that's immediately assumed you're dealing with a Beelzebub, demonic. Oh God, I hate that word in the worst way. But when they show up, it's to drop the nuclear bomb. That's it. It's not a frivolous thing as a normal house blessing would be. I believed I was raised Italian, so I studied a lot of this stuff until I found out differently. But in Italian culture, you call the priest to come bless your house when you're moving into it, and not to drive out spirits. There's just like this general goodwill blessing you give to any new home or ownership of a new home. They kind of toss blessings around rather loosely, or house blessings, excuse me, rather loosely.
At you, bless you, same thing. I mean, in all honesty, it is. It's the same thing when you just say bless you. But yeah, and to get an exorcism can take years.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing that moves quickly in the Catholic Church except rumors and other things that we won't talk about here. So, but yeah, there's a lot of things that, if you're calling in a paranormal team, you should tell that paranormal team first off, if they're coming in there, they need to be prepared to take whatever's in there out at that point in time. It's not going to you can't investigate my house every week for 6 weeks.
Yeah, don't you love those paranormal programs where they call in the paranormal investigators and ask all kinds of questions and do all this investigative work, and then one of the children in the house kind of just let it slip. Well, we were playing with a Ouija board last week, but that's harmless, right? And half the show is over, by the way, by then.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Demon Files. Did you ever watch that with Ralph Sarchie? I loved his candor when he told the people down in Nixa, Missouri, I can't help you. You lied to me. His wife had a paranormal team and had been taking the kids and going on paranormal investigations. The father sold his soul to the devil because he thought his kid was going to die. And why would you go? Ron says this all the time. Why would you go to the devil when you could go to God? You don't have to sell your soul. Just pray to God, as opposed to, hey, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just save my kid to the devil.
Mind everybody of this is that it is the goal of the malevolent spirits that serve Satan to make themselves appear to be God. making you think that when you're going to God or praying to God, you're actually talking to God. You got to watch out for that because you're not able to tell the difference.
No, we don't have, not everyone has discernment, which is hugely necessary.
Which is what was given to me after I got saved. It was the thing I coveted most in my life, is to have that. And after I got saved, I finally had it all opened up to me. Now I can open up a Bible and tell you exactly what it's talking about and why. Before, it was just a bunch of gobbledygook to me, but now I can tell you where, what, for, and why. But Jesus said himself, "Do not be amazed, for even Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light."
I mean, Satan was supposed to, Lucifer was supposed to be the most beautiful of the angels.
Yeah, Lucifer, and I've been asked this many times. Lucifer means bright star of the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And he was God's greatest creation. I mean, he perfected the creation of that angel to serve him. But when he fell and was cast out of heaven, he was no longer to be called Lucifer. His name, therefore, is Satan. Or excuse me. His name becomes Satan after that. So when people come up to me and, wanting me to, refer to him as Lucifer and all that, and I said, I correct them. I say, no, it's Satan.
Right. He had one personality in heaven, and when he was kicked out, he became somebody else. Like the street names here in Milton, Florida. One side of the street's one name and the other side's another name, and you can't keep track of where you're at.
Oh, dear God. You're bringing up some memories. After I had left Baltimore in 1981, over the years, I had made repeated trips back to my home city. And why the heck do they keep changing the street names? I mean, I've seen Fayette Street, Franklin Street, Light Street. I've seen them all get shifted around all over the place. You can't, if you get a map, you got to have a new one each year.
Yeah. Well, I left in 81 too, so.
Yeah. Now, going back to the paranormal topic, by the way, and paranormal programming, I should really say this before I forget it, is that we're hitting a low ebb in the popularity of the paranormal. I'm not going to say blame COVID, but there were a lot of paranormal events I used to be able to sign up for prior to COVID that did not come back. And there were a lot of events I sat at that did not draw flies, that did not come back for another year. As a matter of fact, the first time I met Chip Coffee was an event in Erie, Pennsylvania called the Erie Super Paracon. That was a big name. And it was set up in a nice location, but I don't think they advertised it, because for an entire weekend, all of us were sitting there staring at each other, and not one blessed soul came through that door. And my table was directly across from Chip Coffee, Mike Tenay, who I haven't seen in a while, Dustin Purry from Ghost Hunters is over here. And we had nothing to do the entire weekend but just shoot the you-know-what.
You should have brought Pin the Tail on the Donkey. You guys could have had some fun.
Well, I honestly believe Chip Coffee's afraid of being blindfolded, at least around other people.
Well,
he's a moody one, but I like him.
I can't believe that him and Adam tried to use the Paranormal Pride as their group name.
I didn't know that happened.
Yes. So, and Cassie was on one of their things. She had been listening, and she said, "Well, this isn't Denise Pridemore." So they kind of found out rather abruptly, and they didn't do their homework to find out that I'd already had the name for 5 years at the time.
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
Thanks. I got it by getting married. So, and see, and Cassie says, "LOL." She remembers. Yeah, I'm just. Well, yes, I am, and I'm proud of it. Well, I got my witch shirt on today, so maybe with a W today.
Really?
Instead of a B.
Anyway, Tom just wrote in. Tom just wrote in here. It's fun. It's interesting. It's not a street in Baltimore named the intersection of Pridemore and Bennett.
No, it would be Myers and Bennett back
Right.
then.
But I like to joke to people whenever they see me at live events. Excuse me, are you a celebrity? And I said, okay, yeah, but that depends on what street corner in Baltimore you're standing on at the time.
You're on Joppa Road, maybe. I don't even know if it still exists. It has to.
Joppa Road?
Yeah.
It's just chopped up into little sections.
Yeah, I haven't been there since 1989. No, 88. I went in 1988 with my daughter. She was 1. And I haven't been back since.
I would love to say you're missing something, but I'd be a liar. I was there in the fall for the Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Con, and quite honestly, I didn't feel like hanging around. As soon as the show was over, I went home to Ohio.
The only thing I'm missing is Scrapple. That's it.
Scrabble?
Scrapple.
Oh, Hawaii. In Hawaii?
No.
My wife told me this because her brother, who was in the Marine Corps, was stationed in Hawaii, and they all went out there some years back on a vacation. And Spam and Scrapple are more valuable there than money.
Luckily, Scrapple now Spam has like 10 flavors.
Yeah, I know.
And they have turkey.
Your daddy's Spam.
No, same as Scrapple. Scrapple now has beef and turkey. Because I don't eat pork, that's why I can't have Scrapple here, because we have some random off-brand here that not Rappa. So, but
it all comes from the same place.
It all comes from
the end of the day. There's some guy that comes and cleans up the floor of the grinding area and lofts it into a bin, and there's your Scrapple.
Yeah, I used to tease everybody. I said it's the original gray meat. But you know what? It's just it might as well just be bacon grease. I mean, to be honest. But yeah, it's just something we grew up with, and you just can't get.
Yeah, no, I didn't have Scrapple until I was much older. We didn't. Really? I never encountered that out there.
We did. My family being in Maryland, we were also in New Jersey and Virginia. So in the areas that we were at, it was huge. And of course, we also had brains and eggs, and not a lot of people can say that they had brains and eggs.
Oh my. Yeah, I have been acquainted with the people who eat the calf brains and the BS like that, and I'm squeamish. I can't.
Me too. Guess what I haven't had since I left?
Beef tongue. That's another one I can't eat.
No.
Oh Lord.
There's a lot of things. I mean, I can't even look at liver anymore.
No, I'll do the liver.
I can't. I can't even look at it at the store.
I can do the liver. I mean, that's a packed meat right there. That is the single most nutritious meat you can eat.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
And then here they sell chicken feet, and I know that I'm pretty sure they're not selling them to eat. I think they're selling it as bait for crab.
I believe that. I miss having a good crab. Ohio's not known for its crabs.
This down here,
at least not that way.
Yeah. So far I haven't. We got some crabs from Joe Patty's over in Pensacola, but they weren't alive. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's something about steaming dead crabs just doesn't seem right.
You think one of them's going to pop up the lid and just go, "Hey, what the hell?"
Yeah,
we're trying to get some sleep here.
But you know what I realized is, as I've gotten older, I don't like cleaning out the body of a crab.
Oh, well, maybe you can get people for that.
I got crab cakes yesterday. Takes care of it. But the crab cakes here aren't as good as the crab cakes in Maryland.
No.
And it may
Yeah.
be the crab that they use in Alabama and Florida.
I when I first started touring for the first few years, I made it a point to sample the crab cakes in every city. And no, Maryland has got everybody beat. That's it. And I'm talking about Seattle. Seattle should have had better crab cakes, but they don't.
Seattle has really great rockfish.
Mm-hmm.
That was the best thing I ate at Cutter's. That and halibut. There was a fast food restaurant in the airport, and they were everywhere in Seattle, but I was walking, so I couldn't go hit this stuff. But when I went to the airport, I needed to eat something before I got on the plane to fly back here, back to Kansas City. And I got this halibut and fries. I love halibut. Now, I never knew that what halibut tasted like. I got my whole family hooked on it. It kind of melts like butter in your mouth. So I can't wait to try some more fish and stuff here. But if you get here, I don't know if your sister-in-laws have told you about Joe Patty's, but they've got great prices on seafood.
Teresa knows about it. My wife knows about it.
It's a really good place.
Yeah. Before it leaves my mind, we were just talking about Seattle. I'm hoping there's going to be a show there coming up, and I think it's May, called Crypticon. I did it once before, some years back. I think I'm going to sign up for it again. So all you folks out there in Seattle, you might actually get to see me again. It'll be a hoot. It's going to be held close to the airport.
Oh, good. That way you don't have to go into downtown.
SeaTac is a nice area.
It is. It's a beautiful view from every window. It's a beautiful view. Yeah. Coming into it at night, you don't see much, but when I was leaving during the day, I was looking around. I was like, that airport was easy to get around. Yeah,
it was. And other things were kind of accessible off property, motels and stuff, because it was easy for me to just get a motel close to the airport, and the event was being held short way up the street. And I got this nasty habit when I travel to hit a 7-Eleven and get either dogs of death or their wings, because they're huge. But they have
wings at 7-Eleven?
Big things. They're probably artificially inseminated, but they're huge things.
Yeah. My sister worked for 7-Eleven for quite a long time. We don't have them here.
Yeah, I don't do this at home. I don't go near a 7-Eleven at home, only when I travel.
You have them there?
Yeah. Okay. It's just when you travel, you look forward to a flavor. You don't want to abuse something that you really enjoyed while you're traveling by having it at home, because it takes the fun out of it. There are things you look forward to when you're sitting in your hotel room by yourself. Your wife couldn't come and you have to watch TV. You want kind of that to, reflect on.
Seattle had this great hot dog place by the fish market.
Pike's.
Yeah, it was right there by Pike's Fish Market. There was that. Cutter's is right there by the fish market as well. The Merchant's Cafe down the street, the oldest restaurant in Seattle. I spent one Valentine's there by myself. I only went to Seattle once, so I have a lot of memories of. I went to all these haunted places that I could walk to or take a cab to. So I went there, and I went to Kel's Irish Pub. I got prawns at Kel's Irish Pub. I swear they were this big. They were huge. There was like 3 on the plate, and I almost couldn't finish them. But they had some great food at Kel's. So if you ever get to go there again, it was good. But all the places I went to was downtown. So I don't know. I had to walk everywhere, like I said. I was by the Amazon district. That's what they call it. You could see the Space Needle was like 3 blocks away.
It's really a shame places like that are so far away, because there's a lot of paranormal to work out there. I've done that and one other show down in Oregon, which really wasn't worth my time. But Eugene and Portland, and like I said, Seattle. Those are markets I would really love to work more because there's a lot of paranormal out there to talk about, and it mixes very seamlessly with Squatch country.
Mhm.
Because in the book, I don't make much differentiation between the paranormal and the Sasquatch.
Right. And yes, April, you can ask your question. So just put it out there. Frank loves your questions. So
I'd like to be stumped. That would be nice.
you won't be. April is she knows her Bible. So she's my cousin. She's one of the ones that is usually in the show asking all these prophetic questions.
Prophetic or pathetic?
No, pro. I'm the one that asks the pathetic questions. So
yeah, I had somebody come to me at a show once and said, "I'm gonna need to ask you a pathetic question." I looked and went, "Oh, I can't wait to hear this. This is going to be funny."
Did they also say library? God, I hate that.
Oh shoot! But I'm sorry.
Okay, so she asks, why do many in Hollywood portray God as a woman and sometimes Satan as a woman?
Oh Lord, this began after the 60s, and there was a huge feminist agenda in Hollywood after the 1960s, and it really is just the corruption of the original plan of God, and anything they can do to bring God down from his high place, they will do. If anybody researches, you'll notice they made God into a whole bunch of things in Hollywood. In a certain Jim Carrey movie, he was a very articulate black man, and in other movies, he's a dog. In a movie with Steve Martin, he's a billboard sign along the highway. It's just Hollywood stretching the boundaries any way they can, and there's no sign of them stopping. In the end, Hollywood is about money, and if they put out something that doesn't sell, like a woman in the role of God, they won't try that again for a long time.
Yeah.
So, don't worry about that. If they don't make money on it, you ain't going to see it anymore. And unfortunately, that's what's been going on with a lot of our paranormal programming. They're just not making money anymore.
I heard that almost all the shows, except for one, have been not renewed.
That's right. Most of them have gone into syndication, cheap channels, secondary and third. They're buying them and running them over and over again because they're cheap to buy. Now, I'm going to do a public service. A year ago, my wife and I had the same cable you all had, and we were paying 150 something bucks a month to have it. And we had a whole lot of channels with very little to watch. So we went and got Roku. On Roku, I can watch probably more than half of the paranormal shows that have ever come out in the last 20 years, all at the same time if I wanted to. They're available right there on demand. And we don't pay more than $20 a month to watch TV.
I know.
They actually gave ghost hunters their own channel in a Roku.
Yeah,
so you can watch all the episodes 24/7.
Yeah, we had that on over at Lindsay's one day. So April asked to go along with her question. She didn't ask. They like to reference the Book of Enoch and the Zohar and other ancient texts often in those shows where they portray the women as God.
Yeah, here we are again. Beginning in ancient Babylon, there were a lot of religious sects that you would have a primary religion. Say, okay, in the Jewish religion, you have a secondary religion that surrounds it, a mystical religion called, Kabbalism. Madonna belongs to Kabbalism. And it's basically a mystical fantasy world that exists around the existing faith. And that's where you get books like, the Zohar and all that. And they're not canonical. They don't belong in the Bible. They're never even referenced in the Bible. And they existed before the time of Jesus. So you're basically referencing, extra biblical works from, a couple thousand years before Jesus was born. And many of them did worship female deities. And just like the Romans took so many Christian worship holidays and applied their own standards to it, which is how we got Christmas the way we got it.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of Jews and a lot of people of other religions that took these ancient worships of these female deities and just reapplied it over existing standard religions. And I would love to say it stops, but it just keeps going on and on. There are new incarnations of it all the time.
Is it possible?
Before you say that, the only place you're not going to do it is Islam. In Islam, they'll lop off your head for even thinking about it. Plain and simple.
So is it possible that these other books that people mention along with the Bible have been, let's just say, censored? That they were mentioned in the Bible, but it's been censored over time from all the different reiterations of interpretations of the Bible.
Okay. There have been several incarnations of what we call Scripture. And up until when Jesus walked the earth, you had the first 5 books of the Bible called the Pentateuch in the Hebrew. And those are the first 5 books of the Bible. The first 5 books of the Bible are direct words quoted from Moses. Moses sat down with his scribes and actually dictated the first 5 books of the Bible. That's what Jesus and his disciples walked the earth with. After Christianity came into being and all of these extra gospels started to be written, the Council of Nicaea had to be established in 333 AD by Constantine. And that's why it's called the Council of Nicaea. It was held in Nicaea, Italy. And all of these bishops had to go through each and every one of these Gospels and these extra books, the Book of Zohar and all of that, and try to determine which ones are of the same line of thought and which ones are not. Which ones seem to be telling the same story and reference the same things and which ones do not. And that's how we got 66 books left over. But you see, in the first iteration of the Bible, the Codex, all 66 books were not available. That did not happen until the King James Version was produced in 1711. And that was the first time that even the Book of Revelation was allowed to be seen by the public, because up till then, the Apocrypha was left out of everything. And that's how we got what we got today. And that's why I use the King James Version, the original King James Version. And today, even since that, I belong to a religion that has one God and one Savior, but over 230 different versions of the same Bible. So this thing where we talked about before about you have this religion and then you have this spiritualism, the spiritual sect that grows up around it, and always trying to influence and make changes to it and apply their own standards to it. And so now we have 230 different versions of a Bible that was produced in 1711.
Well, yeah, because certain people can't handle the word thou every sentence. Sometimes 3 or 4 times in a sentence.
What April is saying, that's true to a point. And again, that's not something you speak aloud in Islam. Islam in many ways is very French. In the French language, you have the masculine and the feminine. In Islam, you have the masculine and the feminine better shut up, or the feminine won't live long. So they don't allow a lot of feminine thinking into the Islamic traditions. And this is why you won't find many women mentioned in the Quran.
So there are probably no women prophets.
That's right. In Islam.
Right.
Oh, of course it was. Tom just wrote that he believes the Bible was edited by the Catholic Church. Of course it was. You see, but here's the reason why I use the King James Version of 1711 is because King James was not part of the Catholic Church.
He was Protestant.
Yeah. He was part of the he was kind of like an offshoot of the Reformation, but didn't belong to the Reformation. And he used a whole different set of scribes. He didn't use the ones that the Pope dictated they use. He used a totally different set of interpreters and scribes. And with very few exceptions, it is the closer representation to the original Hebrew and the original Greek, as you would have found in the Codex, where the early Christians would have used, and the early Pentateuch, which Jesus and his disciples would have used. It's the closest representation you're going to get. Not exact, but the closest you're going to get.
April says one big King James version that is debated is the addition of the word Trinity.
Okay. I'm sure it is. Nobody to date has presented that to me. I'm sure it's out there. But again, that's a subversion of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. And this is why I go back to its perfect representation, exact representation in its original language. In the original Hebrew, where in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1, God moved along the surface of the deep, is what it says. And in the Hebrew, the word God is Elohim. And in the Hebrew, any word that ends in EIM is a plurality. The Bible is notorious for lacking details. And in that sense, you have what says God, but more than, but not telling you Father, Son, Holy Ghost. That comes out later in other books. But the idea of the Trinity has been challenged all down the line, even to today.
She says, I believe in the Trinity. The word was added to the New Testament, but the original book didn't say Trinity.
Well, no, it said Elohim.
Yeah, so basically it implies multiple.
A traditional Jew would have known what Elohim meant. And they knew what it meant without saying Father, Son, Holy Ghost. It's a lot like saying, there's 3 Jewish men over there, but you didn't name them. But you know it's 3 Jewish men.
So if I was to go out and buy a Bible, which version should I buy?
This is this is the person I've always been. I don't like looking at people and saying, you better do this. I've never been that way. I can't be that way. I've made way too many mistakes in my life. And, I ain't proud of it. And
you should be, because you came back from all of them.
It seems that way, doesn't it? But I invite everybody out there to go prove me wrong. You go into any bookstore, in any given bookstore, Barnes & Noble's, Books A Million, you name it, you're going to find over 100 versions of Bibles in there. And there's new ones coming out all the time. Go through all of them. And whichever one strikes you as being solid and truer to the word and truer to the Lord, you follow that one. Whether it is the right one or not, it'll bear itself out in time.
That's basically what people say about tarot cards.
You gotta go through a little hell to get to heaven. And there's a lot of things that seem like the right thing to do at the time, but later on you find out you spun your wheel. When I was a teenager, I got into astrology because a lot of celebrities did. And
it was big back then when we were young.
Yeah, you remember when you would go to the store and in the impulse thing they had the little scrolls and the different for the different signs of the zodiac.
Put your little 10 cents in there, and they would just come right on out.
Yeah, well, I would get those all the time, and I would follow those as best as I can. And I got to tell you, after following it strictly for 10 years, I had no more to show for it than when I started. I cannot tell you if it worked or not. But I gave it a try, and it didn't work out.
I thought it was
basically in the mid-'80s. I just figured out why do I keep doing this? It never works. Well,
again, that's called insanity. So we know the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and not getting any different results.
Yeah. And I didn't go halfway, by the way. I learned how to go to the library, access the ephemerites, and do the research and cast horoscopes. I learned how to do all that cool stuff. It didn't make me any richer, taller, better, happier. 10 years later, I'm still the same person looking for the same answers.
The Baltimore County Library had a lot of things to offer, I swear.
Hey, they're the best.
They were, and I can still access it online.
Mm-hmm. They were the best.
It
And
is.
for a lonely kid, the library is really the best place you could end up.
Yep. We would go from Skateland to the library.
Mm-hmm.
From the library to back to Skateland.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a
lot of roads you could take. But again, with the thing with the Bible thing, I've read a lot of different versions, and I've got my own opinions about what the right way to go is. There's a reason why I stick with the King James version. It's for me, and I have to teach based on the King James version, and I usually do quite well, thank you. But if somebody's looking at a version, a lot of folks love the New King James version, and the American Standard and all that. If it is better for you and softer on your intellect to follow the scripture that way, go for it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least, you're one step closer to where you need to be.
As long as it opens your mind to God, I guess that's all that it matters.
Yeah. You just remember, before there was a Bible, before there was a Jesus and all this stuff, and before there was a Moses and a Genesis, there was God. He never changed. He's still the same God.
April asks, what do you think of the Sibylline oracles?
I don't know anything about them. Never.
We'll have to find out what that is, April.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to tell me what that is. I don't know.
I'll have to write that down.
Like
I have time to go research stuff these days.
Oh, yeah. Some people come up to me with the strangest things. I'm not afraid to tell you all that I ain't never heard of it.
Well, the truth is important. So she says it's a prophecy.
Okay.
She's big into prophecy.
I can tell you right now, it's not biblical because I teach Bible prophecy. And Bible prophecy is hidden all through 66 books of scripture. It's lying underneath the text, and you don't realize you're reading it when you're reading it. But as you read other books, it kind of connects with you. And there's a reason why I teach Bible prophecy, is because I can see it unfolding, and I can see the nature of man, and you kind of get the feeling where the world is kind of moving to. For some reason, we're gung-ho about something called AI, but nobody seems to be able to tell you what the heck it does.
Keep talking.
Yeah. And while Denise is chewing, let me take this opportunity. You got to take advantage of somebody when they can't use their mouth, because you're not going to get that chance often. All of Bible prophecy centers around Jerusalem and then Israel, because when the Lord looks at our world, the apple of his eye, according to the book of Psalms, is Jerusalem. That's where his gaze is fixed. And everything beyond that, when he sees it, just like you would fix your gaze at the screen, you see the figures on it, and you're aware of everything in the borders on the outside, but not to the great detail. And this is why Bible prophecy seems so strange to people, is because it centers on Jerusalem, centers on Israel. So the prophecies concerning Jerusalem and Israel are very clear in detail, but the prophecies involving nations surrounding that, and then further out and further out, are much more, cryptic, because they're not seen in the detail. So, for example, I'm asked often, where's America in Bible prophecy? It's in the book of Ezekiel, and it refers to the young nation, the nation and her young lions, which is a reference to Great Britain and her principalities, which were the Americas and Australia and those nations. That's American prophecy. That's how much America doesn't really matter in prophecy very much.
So what Ron gave me was he ate an ice cream cone and he doesn't like the bottom that's full of chocolate. The best part.
Well, he gave you the, oh, yeah. Score.
That's right. So you may not have been able to eat an ice cream cone while I was on here, but I at least got the bottom of the ice cream cone. Trying to sweeten his woman up.
So when I'm looking at what's going on in the world today, we can all see it, I was fascinated how, and I predicted this was going to happen. It went from a military organization next door to Israel doing a terrible thing, and then Israel responding to it in about a month's time. And in 1 month's time, even though the whole world saw Israel get attacked and responding the way you would expect the nation to respond, everybody was against Israel. Everybody's opinion was, oh, Israel's wrong. They shouldn't do this. That's wrong. You shouldn't hurt those people. And that's exactly what Bible prophecy said was going to happen. All the nations will come against Israel, and Israel will be hated for his namesake, that person being Jesus. All the nations, I can't be the only one who noticed how everybody just suddenly up and decided, Israel sucks. We know they got invaded, but they suck.
Believe me, we sat there and shook our head.
Yeah.
Like, one of our greatest allies is...
Yeah. Now, this is not World War III. This is not Armageddon. That's quite a ways off. This is another tit for tat, which has been Israel's history since it was created again. Israel's the only nation in this planet's history that was wiped completely out of existence and then brought back into existence again. The only nation. That is in the book of Jeremiah. It's the parable of the fig tree. And anybody can read that on their own time. But in Bible prophecy terms, the clock really started speeding up come 1948 when Israel was brought back into existence again by the United Nations. Since then, it's been one constant battle about Israel after another. And this is going to continue up until the latter days.
Well, I guarantee April knows knows what you're talking about. She has a son named Jeremiah. And so I know that she knows all about that.
Yeah. It's the other thing about teaching Bible prophecy is this is to not give too much detail. You can get really mired in the details. Because it's like I said, we don't see the world the way God does. He's looking at Jerusalem and Israel and noticing everything outside of that in that order. We tend to see everything in our own backyard and then everything out from that. So that's why we don't see it from his perspective, just like the perspective matters in the paranormal.
Right. You either see it or you don't, or it's the other thing. It didn't happen to me, so it didn't happen.
Right. And thankfully I was saved, because being saved enabled me to see the paranormal all through Scripture. Things that we commonly encounter in the paranormal today, you find examples of in Scripture. And why? I wouldn't have had that if I wasn't saved. And I wouldn't have been able to write my first book the way I did without it.
You always make me think.
What else am I good for? Honestly,
I'm surprised people don't see steam coming out of my ears.
You guys are so far away.
Well, there's a way to solve that problem.
It got there.
Sell that house. It's a lot for sale down here.
Well, that's been a process all to itself, because you got a lot of people that jerk you around. We actually fired our realtors.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, they had our house listed for 3 months and didn't do jack frickin' diddly. In the state of Ohio, the seller must pay the fees and commissions of the realtor, whether the realtor works for you or for the buyer.
Wow.
So they better be doing something.
Right. And after 3 months of watching other real estate companies come here and show people our house, and not one of them doing it, I asked them, have you guys gotten any leads or calls about it? You've been advertising it for 3 months. They said no. And I said, you're fired. I have personally shown the house myself a dozen times in those 3 months. So they're fired. I'll just do what I did down in Florida when I renovated the other houses. I'll just use a land title company. You don't need a realtor to sell a house.
No.
You don't.
And nobody can sell this house better than the guy who did all the renovations.
Right. Who knows it inside and out.
Inside and out. This house was not even livable when we bought it. You could not live here. So I'm the person to talk to about that. But it will sell, and things will move on. Just got a lot of plates spinning in the air.
Well, and you're juggling too.
Tell me about it.
Well, I know that your wife, I know where she wants to be, so I'm not that concerned.
She doesn't want to be in Pensacola. I can tell you that much.
She wants to be close enough but far enough away.
Bingo.
See, we are 20 miles from Pensacola.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go one way, not even that really. You can go one way and go to Navarre Beach, go the other way, go to Pensacola, go down a little bit further and you're in Destin or 30A. The best beach in almost the whole country is Grayton Beach, and that's only an hour away.
Oh, heck, Denise, I bet if they let you build a hut on the beach, you'd do it in a heartbeat and say, smell you later, guys.
As long as it has heat.
Yeah, no.
Because it's been cold this year. I can't really complain because it got below 20 a couple times.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because, my mind works in multiple tracks. I think of several things at once. And right before I dialed up with you, I was reading a story on the nightly news. They had this thing about jets being able to fly east at 800 miles an hour, almost supersonic speeds, because the jet stream has changed. It's actually pushing the vehicles along. And the jet stream has changed because of global warming. Really? Because in the book of Matthew chapter 24, Jesus tells his disciples, one of the signs of his coming is that the sea and the wind and the waves are roaring. So I think, there is a time limit on how long we're going to be able to enjoy something called air travel, because the atmosphere is going to get way, way too turbulent to fly safely, at least as we do now.
Maybe it's the disappearance of the ozone.
No, that came back.
Oh, all of it?
No, I was having this conversation with somebody else. And, oh man, all the stuff that they made us do in the late 80s because of, ozone depletion. Dear God, everybody was afraid to spray, use hairspray after that.
Well, yeah, hell, we were using so much Aquanet that you couldn't breathe.
Yeah. How do you live without Aquanet? I don't know. But I use it to kill spiders, by the way.
So did I. When we lived we lived off Deep Creek over there, and we had spiders that were this big.
Oh, Lord.
And I used the lid of the Aquanet to put over it to mark it so that everybody would know where it was. But I remember using a whole thing of Aquanet to stiffen the spider. So what do we got here? Yeah, global warming. Last 2 years. Record cold here in Oklahoma. Yeah. We had record cold here in Pensacola this year. This is the coldest winter they said they've had in years. And
still 100 times better than Kansas.
Still better than Kansas City. Even though it's been warmer there, they still had shitty weather this year.
Our atmosphere works in an equilibrium.
It's been warmer there,
and
one day here and there.
The atmosphere is being warmed by the sun, and the scripture says is that the angel poured out his vial of judgment upon the sun, S-U-N, and so that it should scorch men with great heat. This is in the book of Revelation. I think it was chapter 5 or 6. I forgot which one. But this started, and you can access NASA's reporting and records on this. The sun's output activity in the early 90s started increasing steadily. And we are being bombarded with more and more solar radiation in the atmosphere each year. And it is causing the atmosphere to warm. Eventually, it does permeate to the ground, and it does get held under the clouds. That is true. So it is getting warm. But our atmosphere operates in an equilibrium. And if you start overwarming it, then, you're still going to have extreme cold.
Mhm.
Okay. Because, we have something called night, and that's when the cold usually comes in. So the two are trying to balance each other out constantly. And when they can't, you have these extreme pockets of cold and extreme pockets of heat at various points of the planet. So people will burn here while a few thousand miles away, they're freezing to death up here because they're so extreme. That's what's happening to the atmosphere. It's just fighting with its two extremes.
Right, James. It's all cyclical. It happens, over a period of time, just like our bodies change about every 7 years.
If you're fighting with somebody about the global warming thing, and if you want to shut them up, just smile and ask, "Hey, what happened to the glaciers?"
What happened to the dinosaurs?
Nobody ever has an answer for this. Where did the glaciers go? The ones that carved up all the landscapes and covered.
Oh, you mean Kansas?
Yeah, that right. I mean, where did they go?
Yep.
Why did they retreat?
Yep.
And that usually shuts about everybody up.
Oh, Ron says it was dinosaurs driving SUVs.
Oh, I heard that once.
With their farting cows.
Yeah, well, the cows were driving Teslas, which are also killing the planet.
Yeah.
They're probably running on lithium batteries.
Well, what's really bad? Well, we're not going to get into that. I sold my Tesla stock, so I can be as critical as I want now. But it is what it is.
Well, we have a electric battery plant built not far from here.
Yeah.
And they poured a huge amount of money into this thing, brought a whole bunch of people from a whole bunch of countries here to get this thing up and running. They even put in an additional interchange and toll booths off of the turnpike to facilitate it. And within 2 months, it folded. It's barely operating now.
Because all the stuff to make the batteries come from China. And China says,
and the market's not there.
Yeah, and China's telling us to screw ourselves anyway.
Yeah, Ford and GM, they have electric vehicles they can't dump.
That's why Ford stock went from 18 down to less than 10, and then they announced that they were going to cut back on the EVs, and now their stock's going up again. And Toyota said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do hybrids because they're not going to give any money to China for all the shit that they got to buy from China. But of course, now we're getting political on a paranormal show again.
You're not going to be able to stop what's coming. What's coming is a judgment of the Lord. The Lord had his angel pour his vial of judgment. Now, symbolism in scripture matters. When I say vial, some of your listeners may not even remember what a vial is, but it's a very thin tube that they put chemicals and cultures in. Okay, it's thin, it's glass, and we've had them for thousands of years. But when you pour something out of a vial, it's in small increments, slowly. You can't dump it out. It doesn't work that way. And so the sun has been slowly and progressively getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. That was the judgment, that the sun would get progressively hotter and hotter and hotter as we go into these final days. And the winds, like I said before, they'll be raging. In the seas, there are more and more incidents of rogue waves, 300-foot waves, being reported by shipping and by cruise lines. A cruise ship, I think it was, I forgot where it was, near Netherlands or something, Denmark, actually almost capsized by a rogue wave as tall as the ship.
I don't have any desire to go on a cruise anymore.
Well, maybe later. I used to sell cruises way back in the day. I'd recommend it while you can.
Well, I do notice that the warmer it gets, the windier it gets.
That's right.
And what's lovely about the coast is the wind never sits still. There's always a breeze coming off the ocean.
Right.
But so far the biggest waves I've seen were right after a hurricane here. I haven't seen anything huge since, since then, what was it? The Hurricane I, whichever one that was, started with an I that hit Cedar.
Irene?
Yeah, Irene.
Irene or Irma, one of the two.
It was just the one last year.
Okay.
It hit right at the corner of the Panhandle and went through Jacksonville. It started with an I, though. The last one to hit here where we live is Ivan. All the trees are bent over because of Ivan.
Right.
Sally hit, but it was already on shore before it came, and all it did was flood a few places around here. Nothing major. But I don't know. Oh, you leave on a cruise on Friday?
Who's it?
Susan. And I want to say hi.
Where are they going to Alaska?
I don't know. Where are you going, Susan? I wanted to say hi to Susan Box. I saw that she was that she liked the show.
Oh.
That's Ron's other cousin.
Yeah.
We always find family members in here. So
now, Susan, I can assure you, I'm just a fill-in, last-minute replacement. They're going to have better guests. Don't give up on it now. Stick with it. Stick with it.
She's going to go on her cruise. She retired.
Go up from here.
Yeah, that's right. We're at the bottom. We're at the bottom of the barrel. Tomorrow night's guest is so much better. So make sure you come in tomorrow night to hear tomorrow night's guest, Christopher Balzano. He's an author.
We'll call you Phil and Frank for nothing.
No, it's been a while since you've been on the Paranormal Pride.
And how many sex groups does her husband have?
So Frank, we're pretty much done with the show. Where can everybody find you besides on here or tomorrow night's show sometime?
Well, I'm published on Amazon, so just type in my full name into Google, Frank J. Bennett. Everything about me you want to know comes up. And I haven't really scheduled a lot of tour dates yet because I'm waiting for some other shoes to drop, and I'm being very picky. But in 2 weeks, March 1st and 2nd, you'll find me in Burbank, California for the Hollywood show. And just look Hollywood show up online, and there's over 90 celebrities from film and television are going to be there. Some of them friends of mine.
Yep. Well, I hope you have a good time, and I hope you sell a lot of books. And can't wait to read the next one that you got. So
actually, I'm in process of I'm half finished 3 books. And if anybody out there is trying to write, Denise, a writer's process is different person to person. You can sit there and stare at a word processor the entire day, and you won't have a blessed thought in your head. I mean, it just comes to you when it comes to you. When I wrote my first book, I was working demolition, and I would have thoughts come to me for this, what would be great for the book, while I was laying down underneath of a building in a conduit with a cutting torch. And I'd have to find something to scrawl my thoughts on, put it in my pocket, and put it on paper later. I mean, you got your processes. Lately, I've been kind of on fire and adding content to 3 books at the same time. And if this keeps going at this pace, hopefully next month, I'll have one of them published by then.
Perfect. Can't wait to hear about it. So guys, thank you so much for listening to the Paranormal Pride tonight. I'll be back next Monday night with my guest, Father Kenneth Torres, and we're going to be talking about pretty much a lot of the stuff we just talked about here, but from the minister standpoint or the priest standpoint. So it'll be good. I think you guys will like that. Join us tomorrow night here at 5 p.m. Central for my guest, Christopher Balzano. He used to be the co-host on Spooky South Coast. He's also an author who lives here in Florida, down south in Cape Coral. So I want to hear what he has to share with me about Florida, because again, I still don't know it all. I'm trying to get there. So I'd like to invite you guys to join us tomorrow night for Paranormal Nation Radio Not So Normal. Check us out on Rumble, and you can find these 2 shows, Paranormal Pride and Paranormal Nation Radio Not So Normal, also on my YouTube, as well as any place that you see this post, you should be able to click on it and open the show. So join me next Monday night at 7 p.m. Central, and I hope everybody has a great night. Good night.